Greetings. This is episode number 46 of Slammin. This is Vandal Drummond, joined by Fredo Esparza, the mechanic behind the machinery here.
We have no music right now.
That's right. Isn't that a trip? There's no 5 years ahead of my time, which, kind of throws me off a little, to be honest. Yeah, this is episode number 46, but our first episode using TalkShoe.
Let's see how it turns out.
Yeah, we'll see how this is happening. And just to tell people beforehand, this will probably be one of our shorter episodes, as I have a bit of the bronchitis and a scratchy throat, and so I don't know how long my stamina will be tonight, but how are you doing tonight, Fredo?
I'm doing good. Hey, I think we have another caller. Oh, no, we don't have a caller. We have a follower right now.
We have a follower? I like that.
I think it's Ryan.
We have that cult-like following already. One cult member.
Oh, wait, we do have a caller now.
Do we have a caller?
You do have a caller.
Oh.
This is the first time Ryan's ever called us.
It is the first time Ryan's ever called you.
Oh, my Lord, this is really cool.
I just wanted to join the festivities for a brief time. The opening show on TalkShoe. How about this?
This is really awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So,
I'll tell you,
Ryan
I'm
Doyle,
excited.
Right?
Yes.
How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I am doing wonderful. How are you guys doing?
Great.
We're
awesome.
Doing really well. We're trying the TalkShoe equipment out for the first time, so we might sound a tad more amateur than usual.
Well, you guys sound great so far.
Why, thank you.
You know what? I am so excited. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about. I am really excited about the weekend of January 29th and 30th. I mean, what fun. A lot of good stuff happening.
We have both WrestleReunion going on, both Saturday and Sunday. Then Sunday night, there's...
Friday also.
Yeah. That's right. I keep forgetting that it includes Friday.
Ring of Honor.
Only Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it's like, forget those guys. They're not from Los Angeles. They're only supporting L.A.
That's right. We're native SoCal boys,
That's right.
Look for the union label, SoCal Indies. Ring of Honor on Friday night, and the Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Show on Saturday night, then Millennium Pro on Sunday night in Simi Valley, which the three of us will all be present for.
Absolutely. And the highlight for me, personally, for Saturday night is Rock Riddle.
That's right, the original Mr. Wonderful. For those of you out there who are not familiar with our comrade Ryan Doyle, he is one of the long devotees of Southern California pro wrestling, going back to the 1970s when we were just little squirts. And 1975 was the year Rock Riddle splashed onto the Southern California wrestling scene. Mr. Wonderful.
And this will be my first time, obviously, seeing him live. I believe I started going to the wrestling at the Olympic in 76. I believe I was about 5 years old when I started going. So I think by that time, Rock Riddle had, sort of moved on at least from L.A. wrestling anyways. I'm sure he moved on to another territory.
Well, I'm not sure if he did or not, because I think he might have stayed and gotten to another line, because...
I believe he got into either, into movies or some type of acting gigs.
Yeah, movies, acting. I know he runs some sort of, talent agency company.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know much about it other than he's involved in one. I do remember, for those of you who are Martin Mull and Fred Willard fans, he made a memorable appearance on Fernwood Tonight in 1977.
Ah.
Where he sings the old the 1950s love song, "Hold Me, Hold Me," and
that must have been a treat.
Oh, it was hysterical. And then they follow up the next night, where he is going to take on an amateur wrestler, and they open the show with Rock Riddle just laying on his back in the middle of the studio and just selling his back and saying he can't wrestle tonight because he's too injured. And so they go through having all their other, guests. Anybody unfamiliar with Inferno tonight, it was an ahead-of-its-time show that had a lot of folks on before they're famous, like Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman, and Jim Varney, who went on to be the Ernest character we all loved. Yeah, throughout that whole show, Rock Riddle just laid in the middle of the studio selling his back, and they went off the air with it, too.
Wow. Oh, that's something to see if there's any type of YouTube footage on that. I mean, doubt that there would be, but boy, that would be something if there was.
Oh, that'd be wonderful to see.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Bix, what's up?
Not much. Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting. The sound quality's a lot better.
Oh, it is?
Blog Talk.
I was wondering if that was my imagination or not.
I think it's because it's conference call type of software or something like that.
All I know is you can actually hear Fredo almost clearly this time.
Oh, see, it's a big plus now.
That's great.
He's not hardly above a whisper this week.
I know, seriously.
So maybe we should thank Blog Talk Radio for alienating us from their presence.
Actually, the great thing is that it shows you who everybody is on the show. Like, it tells me David Bix, Ryan, and California.
Yeah, because I'm already I'm registered, so it just shows it knows my number and everything, or me because you invited me and all that.
Yeah, we got to get Kurt to sign up for it.
And I guess I will have to do that, so I'll be known as somebody other than California.
Just wait till Dan calls and then it's California 2 or something else.
Well, we got a tag team going.
A tag team, Mr. California 1.
Mr. California.
And that was another reason why I called. It is a day of celebrating, as there is a birthday to celebrate today.
That's correct. Our good friend, very dear friend, Dan Farren.
The commish.
The commissioner, yes. Commissioner Dan Farren, happy birthday to you. We're hoping that he's going to be calling in tonight. As he puts it, he's double nickels, 55.
Does look a day over 1,000. How does he do it?
I know, totally. We're all getting older. I mean, here, Ryan, you and I are talking about the 1970s, I swear.
Yeah.
We're probably one of the few who remember all the folks like Rock Riddle, Bengali, Wildman Jack Armstrong.
Exactly. Wildman Jack Armstrong. There's somebody I wish they would have gotten for the Legends Battle Royal.
I'm surprised they didn't. I know he showed up to the convention last year before I arrived, unfortunately, because of all the wrestlers I've known, especially, of all the Southern California ones, Jack is the most intriguing character, one of the friendliest guys, and, one of the most centered and content people I've ever met. He lives just like, in a mobile home around Pacific Palisades. He's across the street from the beach. As long as he's got the beach and Gold's Gym within reach, he's content. Put on some rhythm and blues music, and he's a happy man.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard so many nice things about him, and I don't know if he, when the last time he has actually competed. I'm not sure. Is he still doing any type of?
No, last I heard, he had to have both, knee replacements. I think some other surgeries too, and I think he's one of these guys. Well, he's always enjoyed the business. He never was delusional about giving up the ghost or anything. He was. I think he's one of those guys who has no problems just not looking back.
Well, he also seems to be the kind of person that has found other things to occupy his time and make a living at, after he knew that his wrestling days were over, and do well with it. I mean, I know he's done, I believe, some, kind of gone the Judo Gene LaBelle route of doing, movies and stunts and things like that. Done a lot
of personal training. He was Randy Savage's personal trainer when Savage did the Spider-Man flick.
Really?
Yes.
Did not know that.
Yes. Yeah, Armstrong's been quite a fixture. He's also been quite a fixture on the bodybuilding scene. He was the longtime boyfriend of Cammie Lusco, who was a name in bodybuilding. and strong woman competition in I think it was the early 1980s. Very close friend of Don Ross, Ripper Savage, who not at all a good wrestler, but was, respected on the bodybuilding circuit. And it's interesting because Armstrong's one of those guys who never, went the bodybuilding competition route, never went the steroid route, but he was, he hung with all those guys with no problem, and always was pretty upfront about, the usage being there back in the days when there was a lot of kayfabing about guys being on the juice. Much more open now, but I remember when I was, trying to, bulk up and get big back in 83, 84, he was one of the few people who would tell me straight, like, well, you can get on all the juice you want, but, as big as you get, as ripped as you get, you're still going to be a smaller man in wrestling and not that employable. And, it was good to have a realist tell me things like that.
Yeah, you don't want to bulk up too much. I mean, take a look at you, you get too big and then, you become like, a monster. You don't want to do that. Oh,
exactly. And as you get older, there's all the side effects that take place. Your joints are going to be aching like crazy because you had way too much muscle on that small frame. And plus, I don't know. I personally think that you have to be really, really unusually together and focused and organized to have pro wrestling as a career. It's not always conducive to good personal, mental, and physical health.
Really? Nowadays you can't.
I know, is that a shocker or what?
Nowadays you can't really make a career out of it. So
it's harder to make a career now than ever.
Can't really make much of it now. I mean, half those guys are already.
Yeah, but Armstrong is one of those guys that I dug because I dug him when I was a kid, even when he was just primarily the jobber fodder on Channel 13 Wrestling. One of those guys I always hoped would just ilk out the win. But, I always just dug that he made a career at wrestling, but never had this obsession with, being pushed to the top or anything like that. Just, was very content with what he had. I actually envy that.
True. I wanted to ask you, Kurt, is there anybody that you could think of from back in the days of LA wrestling that you wish, besides Jack Armstrong, that you wish could participate in this Legends Battle Royal that's coming up?
Well, I know they couldn't participate. They're too old, but boy, would I love the Peace Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Brother Joseph and Brother Jerome, my faves.
Are Mil Mascaras and Dos Caras in the Battle Royal?
I don't think so.
Oh, man.
I don't think they are. I was looking at the website, and there was no mention of them in the list of participants, and I'm sure that they would have been listed. But as Dan Farren told me, probably couldn't have Mil in there. He'd probably demand to be the winner, and would be
and probably he'd take offense to be called a legend because it might it might suggest that he's old, which we all know he's not.
But the thing is, like, I think they would have. Well, the fans that go to the WrestleReunion nowadays, it's mostly more modern type wrestling fans. You don't have a lot of old SoCal wrestling. It's mostly newer fans, like WWE, ECW types.
Yeah, this is true.
Because a lot of people were. I was on the DVDR board, and they were talking about who's on Rock Riddle, and I was like, oh.
What? That's sacrilege.
How dare they? How dare they?
Rock Riddle, like, oh, come on, guys, seriously.
Well, even back in the day, Rock Riddle was not that well known. He showed up in LA Wrestling and primarily did jobs, although I remember Jeff Walton saying that they wanted to give him a push, and for some reason he was uncomfortable with it. I remember him working on the mic a few times, and he was a natural. He was great on the mic. The first time I ever heard of Rock Riddle was in one of the Bill Apter magazines. In fact, I think it was just a few months before he came onto the LA territory, and they had this big spread of Mr. Wonderful Rock Riddle, and they weren't photos of him wrestling. They were photos of him at a car show, posing, in a suit and tie in front of all these really high-end sports cars. and saying, "Look at all these wonderful cars Rock Riddle owns."
Hey, I don't know. I think it was Dan who mentioned that, or was it Steve or Dr. Lucha? I think it was Dr. Lucha that said that certain guys just don't like to be, main eventers. They'd rather be, lesser known.
That's true. I mean, actually, I was never anywhere near main event material, but I always thought, man, I don't envy people in that position. It just seems like a lot of pressure.
Yeah. I don't know.
Unless you're somebody like King Curtis Iakea, who would just,
Kurt, what do you remember of Verne Langdon?
Verne Langdon. For those who have not heard, Verne Langdon, the guy who ran Slammer's Gym in the early 90s, passed away last week in his sleep. He was 69 years old. I hung around Slammers for a while in 1990, 91. Don't know exactly how to put it because I like the idea Verne Langdon had for Slammers. I don't like the way he went about things. I don't like the way he treated some of the students. I don't want to sit here and just do this phony thing of how wonderful he was.
Yeah.
Because anybody who knows me knows I wouldn't be meaning it. I was not a fan of his. On the other hand, I know a lot of people whose life he touched personally in a positive way. And so I don't want to just piss on his grave because,
have you heard that interview with Jamie Dundee?
No.
There's this podcast with him. I guess Joey Styles called him out. So he starts ripping on Joey Styles. Then they're like, why would Joey Styles bring you up if you're not even in, anywhere near WWE or anything like that? And he's like, I don't know. And then he's like, maybe he's doing it because of somebody else. And then he's like, maybe Jim Ross. And then he starts ripping on Jim Ross.
What?
He just starts ripping on Jim Ross. It's so funny.
Oh, that's funny.
It was so funny. I just started laughing because he just starts saying like he's really like he makes fun of his illness and everything. And like one of the guys, I guess it's a PWI podcast.
Uh-huh.
And one of the guys left the podcast during the show.
Oh my gosh.
So they're like, why did you leave? He's like, because I was very offended by it's one thing to say, but I was thinking, certain people just don't care, It's like,
yeah.
You kind of have to accept that with certain people just like ripping you no matter what.
Yeah.
So I was listening to that and I was just laughing. I was like,
that's hysterical. That's hysterical.
We should have him on the show. Have him.
Oh, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting.
Someone actually just gave me his phone number so I could try to do a podcast.
Well, maybe we should have that in coming weeks. But
he actually requested that I do said podcast with Rob Naylor, that we interview him.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool. But before we go on, I would like to just elaborate more on Verne Langdon. Yeah. I want to say I thought he had a pretty cool vision of kind of just wanting a place where people could train and stuff like that. And he did bring up some pretty cool SoCal icons like Dynamite D, Darren McMillan. And, to sum up, I wasn't a big fan of his, but I know a lot of people who look back very fondly on him, and had a really good time working with Slammers. So
I had no idea he did more besides wrestling.
Yeah, he actually was a makeup artist, very well respected, was a really good musician.
Yeah, I was listening to some of his music. I was like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah. Oh, really? Because I never heard his music actually.
Yeah, it's like classic, like I guess like classical,
Yeah, he's a very very charismatic guy, very charming guy. Yeah. There's and Slammers did kind of make a bit of a splash. Nobody except for I think Ed Ferrara went on to do anything big time in the wrestling industry. And I thought he was kind of a charming con. He, would, throw things to students, kind of throw superficial bones to his students, trying to tell them if, he'd tell some people that he sent the tapes of their matches at Slammers to promoters and that kind of thing, which I didn't think was cool. He's not the only person in the business to do stuff like that, but he also did some nice things for Gorgeous George's widow, not the one that has been in the public eye lately, but Cherie. Yeah, he did some nice stuff for her when she kind of came around.
We have Southern California on the line also now.
Southern California.
So, Farren?
Does unmuted mean I'm on the air?
Yeah. Nobody gets muted on this show. Everybody comes in unmuted.
Well, I was curious, Fredo, since I haven't used this before. Did you just unmute us as soon as we came on, or was it automatic because we were invited?
It gives you an option when you're creating your first show. You could select if you want the show that person to start muted or unmuted.
Mm-hmm.
So I just left it at unmuted. I mean, it's everybody can call in and talk. I'm not going to.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. So that way in the future, if you're sitting there saying, "I'll be off the phone in a minute, honey, talk to these assholes," and I'll be
you'll be off the show while you're doing that.
Well, Dan,
I thought it was weird though. I didn't even have to enter my PIN or anything.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh, really?
No.
What do they have against me then?
I don't know.
Well, no, you don't have to have a PIN because I panicked when I heard that too. They said if you don't have a PIN, just push 1 and star.
No, but I didn't even have to do that, and it knew it was me.
Yeah.
The weird thing is though, because I have for whatever reason, I just have caller ID block on by default, as you know from my 11111 phone number on Blog Talk. But it just knew who I was. Maybe it has the same type of stuff that like an 800 number does.
Talk shoe hates Southern Californians. That's all it is.
Well,
that's because you guys aren't registered. That's why.
Maybe they heard some of your past shows, Kurt. That's what it was. That's for you.
On,
and
well, Dan. Actually, I'm glad you tagged in here at the moment because we were talking about Verne Langdon, and I was uncomfortably trying to give a bounce thing because
Kurt was going to do a Jamie Dundee type of thing.
That's right. I was going to turn Jamie Dundee. We know how much I am like Jamie Dundee, but I kind of gave an uncomfortable mix of that I was not fond of him personally, but I know he touched a lot of people's lives in a positive way. And I know you're one of those, and I thought I would love it because I know you were involved with Slammers when we first knew each other, and I'd kind of like to just hear what you have to say.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, basically, Verne did give me my start, let me referee matches. And that's how I basically started. Between that and Johnny Legend promoting, that's how I got into the business. There was nobody there refereeing, and I said, I'd like to do it. And so I came in and did do it. He's a very interesting man. He's very polarizing. He was very polarizing. People either loved him or hated him. He was perfect for the wrestling business and for show business. I mean, he fit in perfectly. I wound up, as you know from our talking before, I had not seen or talked or heard from Verne in 15 years. I was working on originally the place started out to be a thing where you could come in and rent a ring. And if you wanted to go in and wrestle somebody, or if you'd never been in a wrestling ring before, they used to have birthday parties there, things like that. And then I always felt that everything was fine that way. But Verne decided at one point that he wanted to have a wrestling school. Mm-hmm. And I kind of felt, truthfully, that when it went to being a wrestling school, it went from being someplace special to another wrestling school.
Yeah.
He was really good at getting publicity for it. And eventually, what I did was I wound up booking some of the stuff and doing a lot of the stuff I do now with him. He needed a lot more time of my time, and I couldn't give it to him. And there was some bitterness on that part. I find that that I was annoyed at that time, but as I grow older, I let go of things, and things don't bother me, especially things in wrestling. So I really don't have any kind of anything bad to say about Verne. He gave a lot of people, including me, and a lot of guys in local Southern California, a chance to break in the business, even to a small degree. And he was very, very good with a lot of people. A lot of people he wouldn't give the time of day. But I think that he had his place, and I think there's a lot of guys that are working now or got inspired by going there, who never would have gotten into professional wrestling if it wasn't for that. So it's like anything. He's a human being. Mm-hmm. He had his highs and his lows, but I look back fondly and I look at it and said I had a good time. And he actually did have an amazing background, which you guys kind of touched on. He was a makeup man and worked on a lot of different TV series and a musician. He
a good friend of Forrest Ackerman's, if I remember right.
Good friend of Forrest Ackerman's, and he also was a legendary mask maker.
Oh, really?
And over the years, he designed, like, for example, the famous Tor Johnson mask was Verne's. Verne designed that, put it together, because he was a friend of Tor Johnson's.
Oh.
And so he was like the guy, if you looked at Famous Monsters of Filmland in the 1960s and 70s, if you looked in the back, there was always ads for mask, Halloween mask or whatever. Those were mostly all Verne's.
Wow.
And he was kind of considered to be a big pioneer in that business. So so he had he started doing all that, and in fact, over the years I did always want to kind of if you remember correctly, when we had Kevin Kleinrock on the show, he told a story about
his start.
How he got to start through there too, and how basically he contacted Verne after an incident had happened with him. Yeah. And Verne had kind of replied sarcastically to him. And I always kind of wanted just to send Verne a note just to kind of see if he would reply sarcastically or if he would, as he was getting older, be more mellow. I never got a chance to.
Totally. He's one of those, for some reason, I thought there would always be time if people wanted to reconnect with him. I pictured him living to be a spry, energetic 90-year-old man. For some reason, this really caught me off guard.
Yeah, I must admit it did the same for me, because it was one of those things where I knew that he was kind of in seclusion to some extent, and he would go out. I did read from time to time that he would go out and do different horror conventions.
Oh.
Where they looked at him as a god. I mean, that was his big thing. But no, it was one of those things where I always kind of felt that if I did speak to him again, that he probably would just laugh. And because the fact that we weren't doing anything together in the business anymore, that it would that it would have been fine. But I'm very sorry to hear him go. I'm sorry to hear him go at such an early age, but I hope whatever it was peaceful.
I heard it was in his sleep, which is
which is and it's kind of weird to start off the first of the year that way. To happen, like it happens that way. But I did not. I felt funny because I don't intend to bag on anybody, and like you said, Dan, one of the great things that comes with getting older is I think either you become more bitter or you become more at peace than when you're younger. And and like you, I feel a lot more mellow. And I wouldn't sit here and say I hated Verne Langdon. Yeah. I didn't want to put on this pretense and throw all these flowers around as if I think you gave a much better balanced story of his legacy. I look at it, he was a human being like we all are. We have our good sides, we have our cranky sides. On the good side, I look at all the different lives he touched and giving guys a chance that may never have gotten a chance. Like, for example, Dynamite D, Darren McMillan
who went on to shape careers of chaos, and
a lot of guys that are working now are working here locally, even if it's just on the weekends or whatever, are working because they were inspired by Darren. And without Darren, Darren, when I used to referee his matches, and in the beginning, he and Jeff Lindbergh, who was his opponent on a regular basis, were so funny because they would write their matches out in steno pads,
that's right,
notebooks, and they would be doing stuff, and then they could mess up, and they would get mad, and they would jump out of the ring and go to their book and start looking through it, and I would say, guys, you can't do this when the show comes along, But no, it's like anything else, Everybody touches somebody in different ways.
It's true.
And I will say this: I've met a lot worse people in professional wrestling.
Oh God, yeah.
Really?
You know, Verne didn't even make the top. You know, didn't even make the top 10. Not that he would, but I mean, especially.
Dan, who's your top 10?
Who's my top 10?
Yeah, come on.
Let me think.
I know who your number one is. I know your number one.
Herb Abrams.
Herb Abrams, yes.
Oh my God! Oh, see, then again, I feel bad again because I feel like the guy's dead, so it's really easy to bag on him. You know.
Don't worry, Dan.
It doesn't count with Herb Abrams. Everyone bagged on him when he was alive.
I know.
Well, that's true. You know,
I guess that does say something for Verne Langdon. I was feeling uncomfortable talking about him the way I did, but Herb Abrams, I just started laughing when. And I think,
yeah. I mean, I still, I would have gone to his funeral just to pick up that $10 that he owed me. But, I didn't. It's like I say, it's like everything else. You sit at one point, and you just go, I'm things that 15 or 20 years ago irritated me to no end. Now that I'm able to eat as a senior citizen at Coco's, I'm definitely having a tendency to mellow out quite a bit.
Yeah. I can't remember at which point. I think it was maybe mid-40s when it started coming naturally to me. It's like why all the wasted anger on stuff? I know it sounds kind of hippie-ish. Maybe it's our SoCal nature, but Are
you kidding? I'm feeling that at 39 years old.
What's really sad about it is actually I started ordering stuff off the senior menu at Coco's a year ago, and they never asked me. They never stopped. I wanted to see if they would card me in reverse. Come on, you're not over 55. Let's see that. I
remember when Physico and I were up in San Francisco for an incredibly strange show. We went down to one of the liquor stores and got some liquor. And as we were buying it, I think we're both 36, and the guy at the counter asked us for ID, and we just were beaming and just looking at each other like, this is so cool. And as we walked out, we finally said, do you think he really thought we were that young? And Jeff said, are you kidding? That guy was just flirting with us.
Yeah, no, it's no. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Kirk. Go ahead and say you were saying about mellowing out. I didn't mean.
Wait a second, though. Did you just imply that Jeff Larson and Physico Nuclear are the same person?
Uh-oh.
No, Jeff is just Physico's nickname. Yeah, I call him Jeff. I don't know why. It's just his nickname, though.
Really?
Nice try.
His other nickname is Fizzy. That's the one I call him the most.
I can't call him Fizzy for some reason.
Yes, you can. You just have to put effort into it, Fredo.
I can't do it either. It reminds me of a '60s drink. I just can't.
Well, that's how the nickname started when Johnny Legend declared we're going to have a happy Fizzies party after we destroy Physico.
Yeah. Actually, exchanged a note with Johnny Legend today. Funny you should say that.
Oh, yes. How is he?
Just saying. No, he sounded just like Johnny Legend.
Awesome.
Hey, how you doing? Have a good day. Take it easy. Yeah.
I love Johnny. I hope he never changes. I don't think he ever will either.
He never will.
Good.
He never will. But no, I know what you're starting to say about that is I think that it's not really a California thing. I think it's just really a smart thing that people can do as they get older. Because there's nothing worse than it's like seeing those guys at Target or they're saying, I want to talk to a manager. I'm furious about, I can't find the Metamucil anywhere.
There's nothing more irritating than an old person who gets more cranky and bitter.
Plus also, it's much healthier for you.
Yes, exactly.
Like all this stuff, you live longer, you don't sit there, and also you don't find yourself, being visited by 3 ghosts on Christmas Eve.
And you know what? I'd rather live like even if there was no lifespan equation to it. If I was going to live, I'd rather live 45 years content and mellow than 90 years bitter and grumpy.
I found the best thing I ever did for myself about 4 or 5 years ago was when I started to admit when I did something wrong, not make excuses about it. And 2, take responsibility for it. And after that, everything else is gravy. It's all relaxed and easy because there's no stress of trying to I make no bones about ever trying to be cool or to look cool or to sound cool.
And I think that's one of the great things that I do not miss about youth is I think a lot of time in youth, at least I was always trying to be something I thought I should be instead of what I really was.
Dan just lied.
I just lied.
Yeah, I mean, didn't you just explain you have a full hawk?
Well, no, I used to. Somebody asked me as I started to get a little bit older, and I'm not that freaking old. I don't want to think I'm not. I'm still at least 10 years away from collecting Social Security like that's going to be.
Hey, you've got a lot more youth than most people at your age.
Yeah, but people used to say, I say, well, when I was in my 20s, I had all these ideas that I wanted, things that I had to do, and I was really, had that impetuousness of youth and all that stuff. And then in my 30s, I started to realize that I wasn't going to, play right field for the Baltimore Orioles, or I wasn't going to be a wrestler or some of these things. And in the 40s, to quote the Rolling Stones, I may not get what I want, but I get what I need.
That's the way to put it.
That's the way to look at it, I think.
Very cool. Now, Ryan said what he's looking forward to most at WrestleReunion is Rock Riddle in the Battle Royal.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Dan, what are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to most to seeing how many of the guys in the Battle Royal will be arrested on drugs beforehand.
Is that how they'll be eliminated?
That's how they'll be eliminated. It'll basically be they'll stop the match every 5 minutes to do a drug test. And if you fail the drug test, you have to leave.
Those LAX police will hit the ring with their donuts and billy clubs in hand.
If they were smart, they would have had a Royal Rumble type of match where the wrestlers would run straight from the bar into the ring every 60 seconds.
What makes you think they won't do that?
That's probably what they'll end up looking like anyway.
Oh Lord!
Or the wrestler who spills the least amount of his drink before he hits the ring, gets some sort of bonus or something.
Oh, that's great!
But,
I love it. It could be a combination battle royal and relay race.
It's like those old waiter races they have up in San Francisco. Where they have to keep the thing not spilled a drop on it or whatever.
I so wish Dr. Jerry Graham was still alive because he would have won that thing.
All right, if you really think that Dr. Jerry Graham could have gotten into the ring in the shape that he was in,
he did. Hey, remember we saw him against Dallas tonight.
I mean, actually crawl into the ring.
He did.
But you also remember the guy was heeling out. Everybody was really hating him, and then his trunk fell down.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, luckily, he had like tights on underneath it, but there's nothing that kills heat in a minute than your main heel with the blonde hair and his green boxer shorts hanging around his knees.
That's right, and they were lucky he was relatively sober because he would have had no bones about just shedding all his clothing as he frequently did in the Imperial Hotel in downtown L.A.
How many drinks was relatively sober for the doctor?
There's nobody like him. He'd put down beers and he'd be fine, and he'd just keep on drinking, and then at one point, it just happened. He would not gradually get drunk. He'd drink and be carrying on a very intellectual conversation, and then he'd just go into BAM mood. It was just amazing, and it was amazing how much this guy could drink. I mean, the thing I'll never forget is one of the most enjoyable times I had with him is when Fizzy, who we sometimes call Jeff, my friend Felipe and my bro-in-law, Tony the Ripper, went up to bring the doc some Christmas cheer at his, this is when he was at the Bristol Hotel in downtown L.A., and as we were entering, my good friend Tom Hankins was leaving, and he and his daughter just visited the doc, and he says, "Oh, Doc's doing good. I just smoked 6 joints with him." And so we go up there, and not only that, we brought Doc a bottle of wine. Tom had bought him a gallon of Canadian Club, and we got up there, and when the doc opened the door, and he opened the door in his great attire, which was a towel tucked under the fold of his belly, so he looked like Kamala. And that's not a joke. He really did that. The only times he'd do something different was if a lady was present. He would grab a robe and put it around him. And as he opened the door, he was a gentleman. He was very proud of that fact. we could smell that great scent of Hawaiian gold, and I look at the bottle Canadian Club, and it was over half gone. We're talking a gallon, and as gone as he was, he just sat there and said more clearly than I could ever say. He says, "Oh yeah, Tom was up here with that dope, and I tell you, the right hemisphere of the brain short circuits the left hemisphere short circuits the right hemisphere, and bing, you're there."
Well, you have to remember the last time the doc was relatively sober, he was 6.
That's probably true. Jack Armstrong told me once he gave Doc a ride home from Bakersfield, which was normally to get back to L.A. about a 90-minute ride. He said this night it took 3.5 hours because Doc dropped 6 hits of acid. I would have paid $100 just to witness that.
Most people would call that a big night. Doc called it Friday.
Friday, Bakersfield, Saturday, El Monte. I remember the night he discovered the existence of Gumby and Pokey and was amazed. And I'm not joking. He was astounded. He was just sitting there going, "Oh my God, you're blowing my mind." We had a guy in the back seat who had been drinking heavily and just started gleefully talking about how much he loved Gumby, and Doc just stared at him like he was looking at this great, prophecy coming about this little green boy with his orange horsey, and he was just saying, "You guys know the fucking truth, I'm telling you."
Gumby carried Pokey through those years.
I thought it was the other way around.
No, Gumby's work rate was great. He could slide around without, having to pick up his feet just on 1 foot or whatever. But Pokey, Pokey just was the drizzling shits. I mean, he was really.
But he still got over. He was no George Goulas.
Yeah, he was the George Goulas of the team. Yeah.
Okay, Bix.
Yes?
If you ever get that Dutch Mantell interview,
yes,
you have to ask him. Was Pokey carried with success, or was he a George Goulas? I would love to hear what Dutch had to say on that.
I bet
Why
Dutch
am I calling
would do 15
Dutch
minutes
like
on
I know him or something?
I bet Dutch would do 15 minutes on it.
Oh, God.
That would be awesome.
Did you ever show the doctor any Davy and Goliath?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever show him any Davy and Goliath?
Davy and Goliath. Oh, I guarantee you, Doc would have taken the TV set and just broke it against the wall because Davy and Goliath was religious. Doc was not happy with the Christian religion.
But it was a claymation dog.
But how long would it have taken the Doc to figure out it was about? Because I remember as a kid I watched those, and I think it was after about 7 or 8 of them. I going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, why are they always talking about God being present and stuff
like that? Why is that
organ
music starting up all of a sudden in the back?
What was that tune, the organ, the God Bless Our Mighty Fortress or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Da, 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 da.
Well, gee, Davy.
Gee, Davy. Do you know God says I don't exist, and when I die, I'm going to just disappear. I won't be with you in heaven.
Well, the funniest part is Art Clokey, who, apparently he was not happy with that because I guess, wasn't he into something like Krishna consciousness or Hinduism or something? Now,
I'm not that up on my Art Clokey, but I believe you may be right.
There's a great, I'm trying to remember, there was a great documentary on him called The Gumby Dharma. Seriously, it's a really good documentary that they show on Sundance every now and then, and they were talking about his disappointment. I can't remember which of the Eastern religions he, was into, but.
And you know what? With all the characters they had down with Lucha in Mexico, how come they never did a Gumby and Pokey?
They never did. You're right.
Are you sure that some small promotion never did Gumby or Pokey?
That would be awesome.
I would think we would see that.
Gumby and Pokey.
Or Fredo, those, by the way, those are great pictures you posted on the board from the that was you, right? From that
the fake Jeff Hardy?
Yeah, the fake vid. Yeah, I think that they need a Gumby. Maybe you and this Jeff guy, Kurt, could, if you ever see him again, could maybe form Gumby and Pokey.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I wish you could have. If there was one thing I wish I could have on tape, I almost wrecked the car because I was laughing so hard. But if you could have seen the Doc in the back of the car, just looking at this guy in awe that he knew about Gumby and Pokey. And to make it even funnier, Doc had dry blood all over his face because he gigged the shit out of his forehead that night and never cleaned it off. And he was wearing a thermal undershirt because Ron Starr had ripped his red polka dot shirt off. And he's looking, saying, all night long this kid has been philosophizing and processing. You think he's got to stop, and now this. Oh, to get inside that man's mind, I tell you.
But you know what? To go back when we were before about the Battle Royal at WrestleReunion, I got to tell you, I am the biggest mark in the world for that kind of stuff. I love seeing the guys that I remember and the old school guys and whatever. And Battle Royal's perfect because let's face it, all you got to do is you find a way to get into the ring, and then you grab somebody, you turn them upside down the ropes, and you hold on to their trunks so they don't fall out for 5 minutes until someone comes along. And I think it's going to be interesting because Terry Funk's supposed to be in it, and we know that he, the only thing that would stop Terry Funk from wrestling is if his body stopped working, and I think he's unfortunately facing that. Jake Roberts is threatening that this will be his retirement. And a lot of the guys, I mean, just to see a lot of those guys in there again. Now, here's where Rock Riddle. I mean, and nothing against Rock Riddle. I mean, one of the reasons why I think Chavo's going to be in there too, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
I didn't read if the Guerreros are going to be in there. I know they're going to be there, but I didn't read anything about them being in the.
I think the main reason, and this is kind of sad that Rock's going to be in there, is because he's one of the few guys that are left that's actually in not bad shape.
This is true.
I
think he took a lot less bumps and punishment on his body than most of the other participants.
The smart ones did.
Yes.
The smart ones really did, and I know that as I find out, and like I said, every time I walk into a dressing room or walk into an arena or whatever, I learn something more because you're never done learning in wrestling.
This is true.
And there was always a chance when you first started watching, that guy doesn't do anything. And then, like, you see the guy has a career of 20 years, and you go, that guy was really smart.
Exactly. That's very true.
Talking about this Battle Royal, it makes me wonder, is this going to be a Battle Royal where they actually take these guys and go over the top rope, or will it be like a Diva Battle Royal where you're eliminated by going through the middle rope or under the bottom rope and onto the floor? Because you would think these guys are going to be severely hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they can also do it like the All Japan Battle Royals with pinfall.
Well, that's true. You could always do the old pile-on like they used to do out here.
That was great. I love how they did that in L.A., and whoever was on the bottom of the dog pile would get taken out on a stretcher.
That's right. And Mil Mascaras always found a way to be on the top. Always on the top.
Yes.
And somehow Red Shoes Dugan managed to fly over the entire and make the pin count.
The man was the Carl Lewis of referees.
Exactly.
That's what he was.
That guy Red Shoes Dugan probably had better cardio than half the wrestlers in the ring.
But I'm going to bet you with the elimination, knowing how the guys are, I mean, there's a little bit of ego involved. I'd hate to see a bunch of broken hips by the time this is over with, but I think there's a thing about, no, I'm going to go over the top rope, and I'm not going to roll over. I think my ego says I got to show them I can do it one more time.
Right.
I just cringe at picturing, I saw Cowboy Bob Orton not too long ago, and I think, man, can he really go ahead and get over that top rope? I mean, Roddy Piper,
Roddy can, we know that,
But,
or like, for example, let me talk about Paul Orndorff. If we don't know to what degree his illness is, I mean, where it stands and whatever, but still, Or we could do what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to do a reverse Royal Rumble. And that is where 30 guys start in the ring, and every 2 minutes they call out a number, and that person has to get out of the ring and leave. So there's only 2 people left.
And the first man eliminated loses the title. The second man loses the belt. The third man eliminated has to leave town. The fourth one has to eat at IHOP. The fifth one...
Are you booking with the LaBelles again?
Exactly, yeah. That LaBelle spirit. Yeah, that nonsensical LaBelle spirit.
They also used to do that down in Memphis a lot. Because, I mean, when you're running that often as they did and you have a small crew, you have to stretch that stuff out. But I have on one of the DVDs, and I'm sure most of you guys have seen this one, where it's like an 8-man, and it's like if Jesse Barr loses, he leaves town. If Adrian Reed loses, he gets his hair cut. There was a stip for every person on both sides.
And then it was like if it was someone got pinned, then the whole heel team left, and that was what happened.
And it's amazing that one of those was on there where they did I think it's on the Cornette DVD.
Yeah, I really like that match too.
That was a great match, and what happened was they all left town.
That's awesome. That's cool.
It was great.
Now, Bix, I know you're not going to be out here for the WrestleReunion, but is there anything that particularly intrigues you about the get-together?
As far as the guests at the actual event or the Battle Royal?
The whole event.
So let me pull the WrestleReunion site back up, because I pulled up the PWG site.
All I want is a picture of me and Mr. Fuji, and I'm holding a can of Morton salt. That's all I want.
Now, is Saito still going to be there?
Yes, Saito's still going to be there.
That's who I'm marking out for big time. That's who I want to meet.
They've added a couple other people in the past week. I mean, I think because of the successful last year, a lot of the vendors have seen that it's a good idea to bring, people out to their booths and whatever. Also, because people are going to be hanging out there most all the day, especially on Saturday. It's good to have something that keeps people coming back to it on a regular basis.
This is true. Well, I remember last year that was one of the weak points. Is Sunday the guest they had on Sunday didn't produce that big a turnout, if I remember correctly.
I think it was just Diamond Dallas Page on that.
Well, it was also a very short day, because as those things usually go, I think it was something like 9 a.m. to 1.
Oh, okay.
It's awfully hard to get people to come back. Saturday is always, that, and then Friday night, I imagine with the Ring of Honor show, and the preview they have beforehand, there'll be a lot of things going.
Now, since we're involved with Millennium Pro Wrestling,
definitely it's going to be. Actually, I might even be working on the show.
That's true. That's true.
Not as opposed to the wrestling show, but working on, because they need people who are old, and people listen to them. You bastard kids, move on that line to the right. I'll throw a fireball at you. I swear I will.
So we can temporarily discard our mellow, aged personas and go back into grumpiness and fiery, angry Dan and Kurt.
To be like those guys you used to see in the front row of the wrestling shows, those old men that would come with their daughters or whatever, and they would sit there and they'd start yelling at people, and then you sit there and go, God, I hope I'm never like that.
Oh, Lord.
So has the Bixie Demon gotten his WrestleReunion site back up there?
I'm looking at the guest list. I mean, it looks pretty standard as far as these shows go. Obviously, you don't have them as much on the West Coast, so it's
we don't have them at all.
Right, besides the last years, right? Here, in New Jersey, there's probably one every few months.
I was going to say there's been a huge legacy of conventions on the East Coast since I can ever remember, like going back to the 1970s.
I haven't gone to any of the New Jersey ones. I went to one a few years ago that was a disaster. That they actually just here on Long Island, they decided to run one the same day as one of the New Jersey conventions.
That the biggest disaster I ever heard of was that 2007.
Oh, the Cow Palace.
Yes, I actually wish I had gone.
You remember that? We talked about that because at this time there weren't any conventions ever scheduled down here or whatever, and we kind of both had a feeling that things were going to go very badly.
Yes,
and being sick puppies that we are, we basically thought, if it's going to go badly, it'd be fun to be there.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I would have paid admission just to watch everything going down.
Yeah, exactly. But no, this convention, I mean, I hope they keep doing it because it's kind of a fun thing. It gives a chance to see a lot of the guys, and unfortunately, as each year goes by, you never know and for example, I just hope he's well enough to show up, and that's superstar Billy Graham.
Yes, I'm hoping too. I mean, it's hard to tell.
It's very hard to tell.
Or is he one of the vendor guests? Is that
He's one of the vendor guests, and he has already said that this is going to be his last convention.
Yeah, he'll be coming out with Billy Anderson.
Okay, I didn't look at the vendor guest.
But I mean, like for example, if you grew up in the '80s, even if you aren't a hardcore wrestling fan, or one now, the opportunity to get your picture taken with Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Danny Davis, and Jimmy Hart is kind of hard to pass up.
Yeah, this is true.
Well, are they going to be together? Well, I don't know if he could get them a picture all together, though, since Bret Hart's going to be separate. Bret's going to be a vendor.
No. Bret's doing a separate thing, from what I understand, and he's also doing
a deal.
Photo ops with the entire Hart Foundation.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they cut a deal, and also they're supposedly setting up a Piper's Pit type area where you can have your picture taken with Piper, Orndorff, and Orton.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, Dan, since we're involved with Millennium Pro, we would love to mention that they will be having a booth there this year.
Yes, Millennium Pro is going to have a booth there. Mostly, we just want to try to get the word out to a lot of people that that we are here. There's some neat things happening. I think we're going to be doing. We're just doing one show every other month right now, but I think there's some interest in some other venues that we may be kind of expanding a lot this year. And we'll be pumping the show for January 30th. Which we'll be doing out in Simi Valley, and you can go to mpwwrestling.com for more details. But Davey Richards is going to be on the show.
What a main event.
Ryan Taylor
going to be a great main event. And we have Tammy Sitch is going to be on the show, and there's going to be some interesting things there. And for the first time that I know of, there is a Mullet versus Afro match.
Oh, yes. You must hype this. I love this. Is up my alley.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, go ahead.
The Mullet versus Afro is going to be Vizzion, who has the mullet, versus Omar Slam Duncan, who has a sweet afro. One of those is going to go. This is my kind of match.
I've already told the guys in charge, if it's going to be the afro, we're going to need an extra half hour. Because that is a mighty afro. If you can just take a look at it. Wow.
And also, I mentioned you and I are involved, but Ryan Doyle will be there doing sound, and of course Fredo will be there
doing that.
And we're biased because we're friends with the guys running it. We're involved with them, but I want to come out and just say it. These are really quality shows. These are some of the best organized indie shows I have seen in a number of years.
If anybody in the Southern California area has not attended a live wrestling show, this is the one to attend, because it is going to be packed, and it is going to be packed full of great matches, and it's an awesome atmosphere, to be honest. It is a lot of fun.
And I got a feeling it's going to be with the way that things are shaping up for the show from what I've seen and been in talks with people about it. It's going to be really I'm too old to use the word off the hook, but it's going to be a Lollapalooza. How's that?
There you go. I like that.
Looking like a true 55-year-old.
Thank you. Listen, I want to do one thing real quick. I want to plug somebody else. We were talking, and Fredo brought it up a couple of weeks ago, and I unfortunately wasn't on that week, but there is a guy, a local worker here, is a really good guy and a really, really good wrestler named Fern Owens. And
Fredo and I want to second and third that.
Yes,
we have been raving about him for a long time.
We were talking. I actually was able to talk to Fern after the show and asked him a little bit about his background, because you guys were inquiring about it. He is trained by Rick Drayson.
Oh, yeah.
Who's
another SoCal icon.
Yeah, another SoCal icon. And he has a great look to him, and he's a very smart and very nice guy. And he has a group called Dungeon Professional Wrestling, which they do out in Newhall. And they have a show this Saturday night at 8:15. And you can go online and look it up, Dungeon. You'll find it there. And he's invited me out to do a little bit of announcing on it, so I think I'll probably be going out there and doing that. But there's a bunch of things, like there's a Magnum Pro Wrestling 6-man tag with Akira Tozawa, and there's going to be a bunch of other guys on the show, and it's going to be a really good show. So if you're in the LA area or the Newhall area, it's only $10, and they're really good guys, and I definitely would like to see people support indie wrestling and support the local guys out here.
Yeah, Fern is a really energetic, enthusiastic young guy. Has a very unique look to him, and I hope he hangs in the business for quite a while because he's a really wonderful addition to the SoCal indie scene.
There are a lot of nuggets in the SoCal indie scene. I mean, a lot of good wrestling there. If you look, there is
talented guys.
Yeah, you don't have to look far. I mean, it's there, and unfortunately, it's a scene that quite often a lot of it doesn't get a lot of attention. And I think also because PWG is so popular here and elsewhere, it kind of overshadows things to some extent.
Yeah,
but
it's also it's oversaturated just because so many people are running promotions in Southern California now. It seems like every couple of weeks I learn about a new promotion that is running, some on a weekly basis, a number of Latino groups on Sundays.
Yeah.
And, about the only negative to say is there's almost like too much out there. But some of the groups really stand out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a tendency to look at it, this definitely sounds like a Mark thing to say, but to me, there can never be too much wrestling. And I know, but the way I look at it is because even if it's just being done in front of a small crowd, it gives guys a chance to get out and work in front of an audience, and and to do it as long as they're not burning down buildings by telling people that they're going, telling the owner of the building they're going to have 1,000 people here next Friday, and then 5 show up.
Right.
That's the biggest problem you run into.
Yeah.
You go, when you walk into place and you sit there and say, have you ever done wrestling in here? And they go, yeah, I had a guy in here 3 years ago, and he told me. I go, okay, thanks, never mind. That's okay. I gotcha.
Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think the smart groups that promote try to show something a little different than every group. Because there's a lot of groups that appear similar to each other, and they're promoting in the same region, which is that when I say the only negative is, you won't draw a lot of crowds if you're showing the same thing to promotion 2 towns away from your shows with the same wrestler.
I agree with that, but the thing is, unfortunately, because of the fact that that's a lot of these guys that put on the shows, that's the only style of wrestling they're familiar with. They don't know.
You're right. You're absolutely right on that.
And sometimes what you have to do is, the fact is when you looked at any of the old territories in the old days, you knew that the Carolinas was a tag team territory, and Texas was a real hardcore area, and
Southern California was like a kitschy territory. A lot of salons, and
Southern California was the territory that didn't pay anybody, but outside of that,
but they still paid better than Nick Goulas.
That's true, but we're going to hammer that into the ground. But
totally.
But
because it's hammerable.
Everybody had their own.
There's never been anybody more hammerable than Nick Goulas.
Yeah, I think that in general, things like, for example, Chikara is very different than that's being done anyplace else.
Yeah, that's something unique.
Yeah, and I think that that's always good. But oftentimes, like anything else, it takes a while to do shows before you get an idea of what your style is going to be. I know that in the beginning, Millennium was an opportunity to take a lot of the guys from different groups here and put together some, quote, dream matches among the local independent guys. And then basically when Millennium came back last year, it was a situation where, that's what PWG is doing. So you got to kind of cut a different swath. And I've always been a very big proponent of, sometimes you have an opener that's just actually an opener, or you have a match that's a little comedy-oriented, or a match that might be more brawling, or a match that might be scientific. So you kind of give everybody, like a smorgasbord when you go.
Well, I could tell people that if you went and saw Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Saturday night, on the Saturday night show, that's what you're going to see is kind of like the dream indie matches, high kick-ass work rate. And then if you go to Millennium, you're going to see a little bit of that, but you're also going to see some almost Memphis-style stuff.
Well, that's
your Fern Owens, your Vizzion, your Omar Slam Duncans. It's a different flavor, and it's good.
That's one of the things that when they first started talking to me, they said, if you were if you were booking or involved in the booking, how would you want to do this? And I said, I think that when you don't have a big budget and don't always have a lot of guys available to you, that the best way to go is to go Memphis if you can, and that is
that's right. You are the one who suggested that to them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
because that's good. So if something happens, it's all my fault now, right? Thanks.
I want to insert here. I want to blame Dan Farren for everything that goes wrong.
I wanted to go CCW, but they wouldn't let me do that.
Even they know the legacy of CCW with Barry Richards.
Yeah, the great Barry Richards.
Barry Richards.
He's still around anywhere.
Barry Richards. As my brother Larry used to say, that Barry Richards, he would announce, "Oh, there's some serious blood. That's not blood. That's serious blood." This guy's the worst.
Remember, he tried to make up names for holds. Dick Lane would do the same thing. Only Dick Lane would make up cool names for a hold. Where Barry Richards would say something like, "Is that a double wrist turnaround knuckle hold?" And whoever was still commentating would just not say anything.
Unless it was Bill Mercer would do, the atomic head drop for the pile driver.
Unless it was Earl Maynard. Earl Maynard was always great. Earl Maynard would always go, "Oh, Betty, look at that. Oh, Betty. Oh, my goodness."
Now, there's somebody I'd love to see in the Legends Battle Royal.
Yeah.
Earl Maynard. I loved Earl Maynard, the Jamaican.
Earl Maynard was great. I think I hope I haven't. Since we're on a different network, I'll repeat this story if I have said it before. But I went to a CCW show out of Pierce College out here, near where we live. They did. First of all, I knew something was wrong because they were at a different venue, and then they advertised that ticket sales had been so high we had to move to a bigger place. I know what that means.
Yes, exactly.
But they went out to Pierce College to the gym there, and it was kind of fun. It was they had Jimmy Snuka on the car. They had Rocky Johnson on the show. They have a guy who we've got to know quite a bit over the past few years, Peter Maivia Jr.
Oh, yeah.
They were all on this show, but what I remember is Barry Richards was there, and what he was doing shamelessly before that on TV all the time was, if there was he would just mention every wrestler. Hey, guess who's coming to championship wrestling? It's going to be the Road Warriors and the Fabulous Freebirds and Lou Thez and Strangler Lewis and all.
In fact, do you remember Dr. Jerry Graham on one of the shows? They were showing an old clip of Peter Maivia, and he said he'll be coming very soon, and he had passed away 4 years earlier.
And they would take pictures from wrestling magazines and put them on like little placards. Abdullah the Butcher will be here. There'll be a picture of Abdullah off of an Inside Wrestling magazine. And oh my God.
Oh my Lord.
I always remember. I laughed about that because also I remember Barry Richards standing there and some kids came up to him and they said, "So where are the Road Warriors? You said they were coming." And Barry looked.
Oh, that's funny.
He looked at him and go, "I lied, okay."
That's funny. Okay, he actually gets a point in my book for that one.
Yeah, exactly. No, I loved it because there was Ava Ripper Savage's sister, supposedly Ava Savage, and she was, they had her with the dyed hair and all this kind of stuff. She was supposed to be like, it's kind of like when they did with Harry Hell and Tom Hankin when they were the punk rockers. That PG TV type feel of what was supposed to be punk or whatever. And the truth was that Ava Savage was a paralegal. And whenever any of her opponents, what they would do is they would go over in the law library where she worked, and they would work the match out there.
Oh no! That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was told. That's what I was told by a couple of people, and I thought it was just hysterical.
That'd be something great for a pay-per-view. A match in the legal library. I mean.
I wonder if Ava Savage is. Those are the kind of people I would love to find because those are the guys that usually don't have any kind of ego. They did it. They had a fun time doing it. They made a few dollars, or they didn't make a few dollars.
There was another girl that hung around Ripper Savage, and she was she's kind of this exotic figure in the bodybuilding scene called Pillow. I don't know if you remember her.
I remember her.
Yeah, I wonder whatever happened to her. There's several that kind of splashed onto the wrestling scene briefly, and then curious whatever happened to them.
Yeah, well, a lot of those guys, they came in and they thought they were watching the WWF at that point, and they figured, okay, well, I have a pretty good body, I'm muscled up or whatever, and I can go in, I can do this. This isn't that hard. And any style of wrestling is hard, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people who really don't realize, that there's a whole art to it, that you just don't get in there and flex.
Because people have said to me, they go, well, you've booked, you promoted, you've repped, you've been, the commissioner, you've done all these different things. Why haven't you ever wrestled? And I said, well, first of all, I have wrestled on very small occasions, most of the time because Kurt likes to punish me. He likes to basically get there.
But you like to punish me. You've beaten me in every match we've had.
I know, but see, that's just your thinking. Your idea that one time, because of your great love-hate relationship with the wrestling business. Remember, you said that if you made millions and millions and millions of dollars, that you would bring out every big independent name in the world and you would beat them, and then you would wrestle me and submit to me in 15 seconds.
Yes, I would. That's what I would do. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly, but no, I mean, it's just those that kind of stuff is always just really funny. And
yes.
I don't want to go off on a rant one way or the other, but it's true about that stuff, and it is the kind of stuff that you do miss a little bit.
Well, and even though we all go on rants on it, we're kind of digging it. I mean, because it's one of the things fascinating the business are all the presumptions made by people outside of the business. Yeah, and the presumptions made of people inside the business too. It's
yeah. No, I was whenever I did wrestle, I was a horrible wrestler because it is not. I don't. Maybe it's because there's a self-preservation part about me. And
you're smart.
Well, I mean the idea of falling. If I try to fall on my shoulders once or twice and I wind up slamming my head on the mat every time, after a while I get up and go, this can't be good.
Exactly.
It can't be a good idea to do. So, I mean, that's why, you go and you do, if you can't do that, you go do something else,
No, exactly. You find your niche, I mean, it's like I said before, whatever gets you over. And as the older I get, I don't care if somebody's a terrible worker in the ring, as long as they're not hurting the other person, as long as they're getting over,
Yeah, and that's always the good thing about, and I will say this with you, and that is you have no qualms about putting people over, and as we talked about before, we've joked about your good friend Lucky Pierre, and how he is at a place where he's mostly comedic relief, but he also doesn't mind. He will lose quite often.
Oh yeah,
as well he should.
He's in there to have fun with it. Exactly. 48 and not getting any younger.
Yeah, exactly. Let's bring it out on the 30th. Let's tell Davey Richards, Lucky Pierre is your opponent, and he's going to beat you. Let's see what he does. You think
it'll be Davey Richards'
easiest before?
It'll be Davey Richards' easiest match because we'll lock up, I'll blow up, and we'll go home.
Exactly.
We're there.
That was always one of my favorite parts about refereeing. Was these guys would stop and they would say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it's going to be 15 minutes. And about 5 minutes into the match, they were so blown up.
Yes. Yeah.
That was always the fun part to watch that. And I think my favorite was this guy that was wrestling Mr. Outrageous, Al Burke, that one time. And he was hanging on the ropes. And Al Burke, who just always had this great attitude, looked at me and smiled that shit-eating grin that he always smiles and says, "Ref, we're going home." We went into...
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about blowing up, I think my my voice is starting to give in a bit, so I think we shall wind it up here.
Yes, we should.
I enjoy
Fredo, do you enjoy your new home here?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's kind of confusing.
I think this will be very cool. I assume we'll be back in 2 weeks, which will be right before the WrestleReunion weekend.
Yes,
so that'll probably be the prime subject.
I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be part of this podcast. I love Slam and Stand podcast. It's a highlight of every 2 weeks for me to go ahead and listen to this. Talk Shoe is really fortunate to have this podcast as part of their lineup. So it's just I really, really appreciate it. And Dan, happy birthday, my friend.
Yes, happy birthday.
Double nickels. Thank you. I couldn't think of anything. Kurt said to me last night, he goes, are you doing anything? I said, I'm just kind of hanging out, whatever. And I said, I can't think of anything that'd be more fun to do on my birthday than to do this show. So, hey.
Excellent. We're glad you feel that way. So, and thank you, Ryan, for being on. Thank you, Bix, for appearing, and thank you, Dan.
Hey,
and
real quick,
yeah.
Bix, how much snow do you guys have back there?
How much did we get? It ended up, I don't know, right here, but some places on Long Island, I think, got up around 20 inches.
Wow.
Hey, because I heard them say today that the only state in the Union right now that doesn't have snow in it is Florida. There is snow on the ground in every other state but Florida.
Wow.
And you guys, I mean, and back on the East Coast, you guys just got the shit kicked out.
Totally.
And actually, after the blizzard a couple weeks ago, it really didn't seem that bad.
Good. Okay.
And thank you, Fredo, as always, for being the wheel man of Slammin. And we want to remind all of you people that if you're walking anywhere on the East Coast and you see all these like white frozen things like just sloshed in your face, it's not a snowstorm. No, it is a plethora of Moncel's powder. Rockin'. We will see you cats in 2 weeks.